everybody. It has been roughly 4, almost 5 months since Pokemon Go was released. Niantic, of course, the developer behind this immensely popular augmented reality game. And for Christmas, and don't tell him, but for Christmas, my mother has bought my son one of the newer 3DS Pokemon games, Sun or Moon. I'm not sure which. We were discussing that, my wife and I, and we had the initial thought of, well, geez, none of us have ever played a Pokemon game outside of Pokemon Go, and that kind of got me laughing that was a concern. Several reasons. Number one, when I was 7, I believe I had some video games. I believe by that time I had an 8-bit Nintendo. And my father didn't play video games. Neither did my mother. I remember I would ask, hey, can you help me with this? And they were no help. They had no idea. Some of the more complicated games I had, I borrowed Ultima 2 from a neighbor. I had no idea what I was doing. I bought an axe and I thought, hey, look, my attack's gone up from 4 to 5. And his big brother came and said, you have to equip it. And I equipped it and my attack went up from 4 to 50. And, oh, that's better. But we figured it out. It didn't stop me. Persevere through the video games. But then also, it's a video game. I think I can figure out Pokemon Go pretty easily. Or, excuse me, Pokemon Sun or Moon pretty easily. The thing that still absolutely baffles me about these games, and nobody's been able to explain this to me succinctly, and I've tried looking for quick articles on it, but I just can't find anything easy. And granted, I did not dig very deep, but is why are these games so immensely popular when you have so many other JRPGs with turn-based combat to choose from? Especially back when they started. I mean, an RPG with turn-based combat and menu-based combat they're getting rare. I mean, they exist, but they're rare. Why is it that this is so incredibly popular? Now, obviously, it's about the trying to catch all your characters. And unlike a game like Chrono Cross, which had 40 characters that all pretty much stunk, I think that the Pokemon roster is pretty lively, pretty engaging. People really seem to like that a lot. So I can understand that, but I don't understand how that simple pull alone is enough to overcome the fact that you are one monster fighting another monster and you attack and he attacks. I played Dragon Warrior. I played the whole thing. I never wanted to go back and play it again. You have Final Fantasy 3 or 6, and Chrono Trigger, of course, introducing active time. You have more than one character in all of Final Fantasy. 4 to begin with. They've actually scaled that down through the series. So active time battles. Then you get things like really complicated timing mechanisms in some of the newer Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy 12, for example. Each attack, each action would be stacked one after another. I'm thinking of turn-based combat like what was it called? Heroes of Might and Magic, where you would see each and every turn for the next 15 turns, because you'd have about 20 monsters on the board, legions that you would control. So you'd see all of those stacked right in a row, and you'd be able to manipulate it by casting spells to make people move faster, and skipping your turn here so that you can be placed at a more strategic turn in the future. And yet, Pokemon, even with the fact that speed is a factor, right? Speed's a factor. I remember people talking about how Jolteon's really, really fast, but not nearly strong enough to make a difference in Pokemon Go. Trainer Tips was telling us about how the way that it's factored is the two other stats are exponential, where speed is linear. So speed doesn't really do much for you in the early days of Pokemon Go. So if speed is a factor in a turn-based game, doesn't that mean that you should eventually get 2 turns? You know, if for example, you count every time you move, you count up a certain number, and every time you get to 10, you get a new move. Well, if you have one character who has a 9, and one character, there's a person walking past me right now reading a book. It's either a Pokemon manga or it's a manga that has a Pokemon advertisement on the back. I mention that only because obviously it's insidious, it's prolific, it's everywhere, and I understand. I mean, I got 100. I'm missing about 15 monsters in my Pokedex, I think, something along those lines. I played it a lot, level 30. I like Niantic. I like Niantic a lot. That's a different show. One that I already did, in fact. Anyway, you would think that if they both start at 0, and then Monster A gets 9, Monster B gets 6. Okay, they both go. Then, as soon as you pass 10, you move again, right? So now Monster B has 18, Monster A has 18. So they both attack again. And now Monster A has got 27, whereas Monster B only has 18. So Monster A is going to attack, and then attack again. 2 attacks in a row, because they're faster. But I think speed only affects who goes first, which is a paltry advantage. So I don't understand the popularity. The story, no one's told me what the story is about. Although I did see a fascinating video on how Pokemon Go is actually the first game in the chronology. So people have really studied it. Maybe it's just the story. Frankly, I don't know. So if you want to explain to me why people really, really like this game, despite everything that I just mentioned, I'd love to hear about it. I gotta be wrong, because otherwise people wouldn't be bothering to play. But there's gotta be something to it more than just the fact that you gotta catch them all. Right? Either way.